was 1998. 6 years had passed since the release of Mortal Kombat, 5 years since the release of the original Doom. The ESRB had been around for 4 years, regulating games, making sure that little kids wouldn't get their grubby mitts on violent video games, putting parents' minds to ease. It seemed like the video game controversies of the 80s and 90s were finally going to die down. That is, until Virgin Interactive announced their PS1 horror-themed fighting game, Thrill Kill. Thrill Kill enticed players with 4-player fighting action and visceral violence. The violence was only the tip of the controversial iceberg with Thrill Kill, however. The game also featured a grinding industrial and death metal soundtrack, featuring tracks from the bands Contagion and Dying Fetus. Thematically, the game revolved around images of hell, insane asylums, BDSM, and hospitals, and made light of mental illness, murder, and fetishized sexuality. What really caused a stir were the thrill kills, fatality-like finishing moves in which the fighters brutally killed their opponents in graphic and gory fashion. Because of this, Thrill Kill was given an AO adults-only rating, meaning you had to be 18 years or older to purchase the game, and that retail stores wouldn't even sell the game. I know the cover and earlier footage has an M rating, but these are bootleg covers. The official rating of the game is AO. Contrary to popular belief, Thrill Kill is not the first game to receive an AO rating. It is, however, the first game to receive an AO rating for just violence, whereas all previous adults-only games were labeled as such for explicit pornographic sexual material. There are now about 30 games on the adults-only list, and only 3 of them have ever been rated AO for only violence, and these include Thrill Kill, Manhunt 2, and the most recent game to get an adults-only rating, Hatred. Unlike every other AO game, however, Thrill Kill was never released. Virgin Interactive was bought out by EA, and EA decided they didn't want to release such a senselessly violent game. In their words, when you look at Mortal Kombat, you look at a fighting game, as opposed to a sadistic killing game. Thrill Kill is a killing game. The product did not meet our standards for appropriate content. So EA was crushing dreams all the way back in 1998. Still, bootleg copies were distributed, and it's not hard to find the ISO files on the internet to play it today. So let's take a look at the game itself. Despite all the controversy, Thrill Kill actually does have a story. It isn't presented in the game itself outside a couple closing cutscenes at the end of each character's arcade mode. The story is that 10 people have died and have been sent to hell. Each of these characters are murderers, and their souls have taken on the extreme characteristic of their mental illnesses while they were alive. Maruka, a demoness and the main antagonist of the game, decides to host a fighting tournament in which the lost souls must continually kill one another until ultimately squaring up against her. If they defeat her, they are resurrected. The story actually reminds me a bit of Twisted Metal. The 10 characters are Tormentor, a judge who was executed via electric chair after it was discovered that he was letting criminals off of charges so that he could imprison them in his own home and torture and kill them himself. He is depicted as an executioner with BDSM undertones. His weapons include chains, which he uses like a whip. He's honestly the least interesting character in the game in my opinion, and I don't actually like playing him because I think he is too slow for how weak his attacks are, thus making him a difficult character to play against stronger and faster characters. The Imp, a little person with a hatred for tall people. He died from complications after he amputated his legs and replaced them with stilts. He's definitely an odd character, and he uses these stilts as weapons to attack and kill the other damned souls. Dr. Faustus. Faustus is a plastic surgeon who enjoyed purposefully disfiguring and experimenting on his patients. He died after he grafted a metal bear trap onto his own mouth. He uses that bear trap and a scalpel as a weapon. I think he's a pretty fun character to play as. Violet. Violet is a circus contortionist who developed a strong hatred for men after one tried attacking her in her dressing room, whom she ended up murdering. She died from a spinal cord injury. Violet is a weird character. Her moves have her contorting her body in weird ways, one of her grapples has an extra step to actually attack her opponents, and she is missing a thrill kill and compared to everyone else. I'll explain thrill killing in a bit. Mammoth. Mammoth looks like a large gorilla, but as I said, this is the manifestation of the darkest psyche. Mammoth was a human, nicknamed for his large size. He was a postal worker who murdered his co-workers and customers after he was fired. He is super strong, but super slow. I enjoy playing as him. Cletus. Cletus is a cannibal who died due to starvation from tapeworms after eating tainted human meat. He is one of the more disturbing characters, and he uses a severed leg as a weapon, and he tries to eat his opponents while fighting. I actually think he's the best all-around character, as he is quite balanced in both speed and strength. Oddball. Oddball was an agent with the FBI who turned insane and became a serial killer himself. He was killed by his partner at the FBI. I like the design of the character. He fights completely using his feet or his head, rolling around on the ground sometimes. His arms are always either tied behind his back in a straitjacket or handcuffs, or even completely cut off with some of his skins. He's also mumbling insanely to himself throughout fights as well. Belladonna. Belladonna is the most controversial character in the game. She killed her husband and sister after finding out that they were having an affair. Belladonna then died after electrocuting herself in the bathtub. She is presented as a dominatrix, armed with an electrified cattle prod. Her costumes include BDSM leather, cat suits, maid outfits, nurse outfits, and cowgirl outfits. She is by far the most sexual character in the game. Every one of her moves are sexual, and she continually moans as she inflicts pain upon her opponents. It's one of her finishing thrill kills that attracted a lot of controversy, as it looked like she was performing oral sex on her opponent before the camera panned out and you see that she is actually tickling her foe's feet. There are also 3 unlockable characters. These characters act as bosses in the arcade mode. The first boss is Kane. Kane is an arsonist who died after he got caught in the flames of a building he was burning down. Kane is the only character to have ranged attacks, as he can shoot fire. This includes farting fire. He also has a really cool skeleton skin. Judas is actually 2 deformed conjoined twins. They are conjoined at the waist, and therefore one must walk on his hands as the feet of the body. He died during childbirth due to the complications of being conjoined. This character is by far the most fucked up in terms of design. I mean, just look at him. What the hell? Also, Ryu and Ken? The final character is Maruka, who is the demon who resides in hell and is throwing the tournament. There's also an unlockable but unplayable character simply called the Gimp that you can knock around in training mode. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to figure out how to actually get him to show up in training mode. I found online that if you hold all 4 triggers and press X while choosing your opponent, he will be selected, but it doesn't seem to work for me. Now that we got the story and characters out of the way, let's look at the actual gameplay. The game is 2 to 4 player, semi-top-down brawler. 2 to 4 fighters are in a square room and are forced to kick the crap out of each other. The game is presented as a brawler, but there is actually a fighting game combo system in which you combine directional inputs with punches and kicks to pull out special moves. With one-on-one fights, it is a little weird to get used to due to the 3D space, but it works decently enough. However, I don't find that it works well with 3 or 4 player matches because they usually end up becoming really frantic, and button mashing just becomes the best option. Also, since there are more players, it is very easy to be hit from behind, and thus it cancels your moves. Another thing that I found frustrating about 4-player matches is the lock-on system. Sometimes you'd be trying to attack a specific player and the lock-on system would draw you away, which really messed with your combos and became a frustrating mess because you never really knew who you were going to be attacking. The titles of these combos were controversial at the time as well, with moves titled things like Bitch Slap and Private Pounder, which Private Pounder is exactly like it sounds. Instead of a health bar, like most fighting games, Thrill Kill has a meter that goes up as you fight, similar to how it works in PlayStation All-Stars. Once the meter is filled, you will be able to perform a finisher, during which time you are invulnerable, and your opponents will be cowering in the corners of the map. If there are more than one opponent left, the finisher will be a quick and simple kill. There are multiple different kills that include punching your opponent into the ceiling, knocking them into a wall, or punching their head off. If there is only one opponent left, a brief cutscene will occur in which you will be electrocuted, and then you will perform a thrill kill. Each character has a default thrill kill. 2 thrill kills you need to input a command to perform, a combo kill, and a dance kill. That puts the total thrill kills at 5. Unfortunately, the game doesn't tell you the command list for thrill kills, so you're going to have to look online to find the combos. To pull off a thrill kill other than the default, you have to hold the correct button combination during the cutscene before the lightning strike, and then let go after you are electrocuted. Then, any attack performs a thrill kill. It's a little irritating because the game doesn't give you any indication that you have put the correct button command in, so the only way you really know if you did it correctly is when you kill your opponent. The maps all play the same, but they have a different aesthetic. Arenas include a fiery hellish prison, dirty bathrooms, asylum halls, and abandoned hospitals. In the arcade mode, you fight through several 4-person matches before coming to a final 3. A 4-person match, including Kane, a 1v1 match against Judas, and a final 1v1 match against Maruka. As was common with old fighting games, the AI ranges from really stupid to stupidly difficult. You could go from landing long strings of combos to basically being thrown around while the computer maxes out their meter in a matter of seconds. The final boss is also annoying because she has a spin technique that sends you flying away every time you get close enough to her. Defeating the final boss will give you a closing cutscene unique to your character, which shows what happens once they are reincarnated. Each ending is twisted and depressing, often putting the character back in a similar position to where they were before they died. Again, this reminds me of Twisted Metal, in that the winners of the tournament never really got what they wished for and ultimately ended up paying for it.
Doctor, is there something wrong? Oh my God!
There's a 2v2 team match as well. The mechanics are the exact same, except you have a partner that you don't need to kill. While Thrill Kill was never actually released, the engine and gameplay for the game was actually integrated into the 1999 fighting game Wu-Tang Clan Shaolin Style, and the engine was used for a few other games such as the X-Men Mutant Academy series. All in all, it's a decent game. Frustrating at times, and the mechanics don't work the best all the time, but it's still a fun little fighting game. It honestly didn't live up to the hype though. It's nowhere near as twisted or graphic as I was expecting, but then again, games have progressed a lot since 1998. It's definitely tame by today's standards. I mean, compare footage of the game to something like Postal or even Grand Theft Auto. Look at how much more graphic Mortal Kombat's fatalities have become in comparison to Thrill Kill.
Behold my power. Scorpion wins. Melina wins. Fatality.
We hope you enjoyed the first installment of our Halloween horror game celebration. Thrill Kill wasn't really a scary game, but it had enough disturbing imagery and horror motifs and a controversial history for me to include it into our lineup of games. We got more coming out, so keep a lookout for it.